Hello and welcome back to Black Guys on White Movies. I'm your host, Aaron Covington,
With co-host Aman Adumer.
and we got a returning guest host. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Wasn't sure if I should go first.
No,
It's
we didn't. Go ahead.
Bernard
No, say it good. Full name. We get it clean here.
and it's Bernard Harris coming back, second time guest host. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that beforehand.
That's all right.
So we fumbled it a little bit.
Yeah, you just pop in.
I mean, is that something you leave in, or do you keep it going? Is it?
We'll just keep it going because a perfect podcast is a waste of a podcast. Give me some flubs. Give me some people talking over each other. Give me some audio problems. Then I know it's real.
I know
Exactly.
Veracity.
Yeah, you'll hear a fire alarm in a second, and that's how you know. That's how you know we're not playing. We're doing this live. Ish.
This week we got the movie It's Complicated
Hmm.
by Nancy Meyers. I guess it's a rom-com. It's just a comedy to me, a family comedy.
Mhm.
Yeah. I see the rom-com element to it. And
I mean, there was some romance there, but it was complicated. It just was complicated.
So funny that you say that because, like, especially at the end of the movie, that was the one thing that it really stood out in my mind. The thought happened was like, this is true to its title. Like, this is just, it is very complicated. Never has a title better summed up a film.
Yeah. It wasn't a rom-com in the way that it didn't end like rom-coms end. It was like you're saying, Bernard, it was like, yeah, it left you like feeling, oh, this feels like real enough and complicated and human, and there's not clean ties to anything. Although once we get into the plot, I will bring up some points where I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting that they didn't. The way they tie things off screen is fascinating to me.
Yeah. Let me read the synopsis. Then I'll do Black Movie of the Week, and then we'll get into it. We'll see how this goes. But I enjoyed this movie. When attending their son's college graduation, a couple reignite the spark in their relationship. But the complicated fact is they're divorced and he's remarried. That was a weird one because it felt like somebody talking to me, like trying to get me into it. Like, well, they reignite their spark in their relationship. But the complicated fact is they're divorced and he's remarried.
The thing is,
whoa, explosive.
Yeah, it's the elevator pitch. But hey, it's not normal. It's not normal. Here's where it's complicated. It's funny.
A couple reignites their spark. That could happen. But the complicated fact,
it's not like
they're divorced. He's also remarried.
If it was today, it would be like, oh, and the complicating fact is that one of them lives in the empire and the other lives on a planet that's far away where there's war happening. And it would be like so much bigger with genre elements. But this is just one of them's married. And that's the complication.
It'd be a big sci-fi epic.
Yeah, it'd be too much genre if it was made today.
Oh man, I want to see this as a big sci-fi epic though.
The It's Complicated reboot. It's Complicated 2099.
2099. It's Complicated 2099. Oh, well, now I'm thinking about it. Was her kind of like It's Complicated sci-fi? Like there might be some complicated sci-fis.
It was definitely complicated. The relationships were definitely complicated in her.
Right.
It's funny that you mentioned her because her is one of my favorite movies. I love that film. And as I was watching this, even when it just came up, and we can get into this a little bit more, but I don't have a super deep bench with rom-coms, but I have seen a number of like kind of, I guess, romantic dramas, like more of the tragic. Like it's something that Aaron has made fun of me many times in my life because I always conceptualize like tragic love stories first. So like her is definitely on that list. So yeah, it was interesting while I was watching to be like, not that I have no interaction with romantic films, but something this lighthearted is not always, it doesn't represent a huge amount of what I've seen. Anyways.
Mhm. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because this could be a very more sincere, dramatic, messy movie,
For
Mhm.
sure. You think
you
about that.
know? And the way they played the drama with like how the kids reacted hints at that. The kids really being broken up, which we'll get into that because
Oh yeah.
I have some thoughts about that. But, you take out the laughs and this could really mess a family up. I think that's,
Mhm.
what they were trying to say in some ways. Black movie pick of the week is Stella's Got a Groove Back.
Mm. Mhm.
A true classic, a film classic, and a black film legend. I don't know if one's higher than the other. It's like in a black film, like
Mhm.
must see, must know about, be aware of, but it's also just a film classic. So I got a group back. It's just in the lexicon,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know, when people can like make jokes or reference it in any medium or any walk of life, and everybody's like, I get that reference. I know what you're saying,
Mhm. Mhm. Even if you haven't seen the movie,
even
it's
if you
like in the
haven't seen
lexicon.
it, you know about getting your groove back,
Oh yeah,
you know.
for
Uh,
sure.
so yeah, and definitely not one I've seen in a long time. I'm like, should I watch? I said I got a groove back. Why not? Why not put it on?
Hmm. It's different now that you have to actively put it on versus just turning on BET and it's there. You know, just being like, okay, it's on, so I'll leave it on.
Yeah. Well, something to think about. Revisiting these old movies is something to do. And that is a good point because TV used to be kind of a reliable place to go and watch old movies. Sometimes you would even know when they were coming on. Other times you just channel flipping and you catch a half
Mhm.
hour or something. And TV still showed movies, but it's just how often are we watching TV?
Right.
Who even has a cable or cable type of package like Hulu or UTV to do that? A lot of people don't even subscribe to anything like that anymore.
Mm.
So yeah, you got to go find them, and then if you find it, let's say you find it, and you're like, "No, I'm gonna watch this next week." It might be off the streamer in a week.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's the
Gotta
media landscape.
truly,
Yeah.
truly.
Their criterion edition of how Stella got a group back. I want to restart my physical collection, like really think about the movies I own and what I have in physical media. This is
Mm.
the analog movement.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. That's interesting. I still have a lot of my old DVDs and stuff. I don't really watch them anymore. I just haven't really like taken the time to go through them. And that's definitely something that's like, a near future goal is to like literally just sit down and be like, okay, you know, I don't need any of these, but like which ones do I really want to keep? Which ones do I want to have? And
Mm.
Yeah,
kind of
I got about
be clear
a
about
couple
which, yeah.
a couple dozen kind of random DVDs from over the years. A lot that I gave away or sold or whatever, or didn't make different moves.
Mhm.
And it's so random. I'm like, I need a proper collection. I need to get like classics that I like, things that I actually like want to show, my kid in the future or share with the family in different settings. And I like don't have any of those movies that I actually would want to do that with. I got
Mhm.
some random movie that I'm not even sure how I got them, but
Mhm.
yeah, a proper collection. Something to think about.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like forget the classics. Like when I go back home to Denver and I scroll through the random DVDs I have, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, these nostalgic like Friday After Next, like the whole Friday
Those
series.
to me that's a classic as much as it's like a classic to me. Something that's like that you still want to go back to, or something that even holds those
Yes.
nostalgic memories. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm putting that over Citizen Kane any day. Like it's incredible. And just to go back and watch those movies on DVD with the bonus features, man, I think we're going back to that. We're going back to hard physical media.
Yeah, give me those bonus features, please.
Yeah,
Give me the bonus features.
definitely.
Back to It's Complicated, which okay, so first we'll do just general thoughts
Mhm.
on the movie. Bernard, you want to go first?
Sure. So yeah, you know, when you first told me which movie it was, I looked it up and I saw the name Nancy Myers. I was like, I've definitely heard that name before, but I couldn't really recognize it. So I just looked up a little bit of her work and noticed that I'd seen some of her stuff, but again, really not since the '90s. Like I've seen probably at least Father of the Bride 1 and 2. She wrote on those, it appears like. My younger sibling was definitely a big fan of Parent Trap, and I've seen Parent Trap a number of times.
Mhm.
But I wasn't really familiar. But
Right.
looking at that filmography was really interesting because there's like so many of those movies that I've never seen them, and they're kind of like out of my wheelhouse. They were like they all like I knew them all, right? Like she's got the one Something's Got to Give with Jack Nicholas and Diane Keaton. Like I've seen
Mhm.
that poster or that video cover about a million times. So like all of her films, I was like, this lady's got hits. Anyways,
Nothing but hits.
nothing but hits. You know what I mean? So, but to build off of that, my general impressions, again, it was a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. I think her whole filmography really shows kind of like this attention to like mature rom-com.
Sure.
Even talking to my sibling earlier, like the Parent Trap is also that. It's really about the parents like getting back together. So there's a lot of this like kind of like more mature rom-com element. And I thought that a lot of that went over pretty well in this movie. I definitely felt as I was watching the movie, like this is the work of a pro. Like some of the scenes, like again, we can get into it later, but like the graduation party scene on which all of the relationships kind of turn, and it like wouldn't it be nice that song like kicks in like perfectly at the perfect time when they're dancing? It's like there was a lot of scenes like that when she's in the garden and Alec is leaving, and you kind of see him in the background as he looks over his shoulder back at her. I was like, this film is done by a pro. There's a lot of like great images and a lot of like great like little moments for sound or even like witty lines that come in here and there. So that definitely stood out to me, and I did think that it was ultimately a mature rom-com. I mean, even to get back to some of the things we were talking about before with like it being complicated, like ultimately, I really enjoyed that there was no villain in this piece, right? Like literally, like the complicated situation was the antagonist. That was the thing that everybody was kind of fighting against.
Yeah.
And they either, got past it or they didn't in their own way. You know what I mean? And something about that felt really good to like I don't even have a better word than that. But yeah, I mean, there was also some things on the flip side that it was kind of hard to enter into at the beginning. I mean, this is clearly a very wealthy family. This is like the Martha. Yeah, this is like
We'll definitely get into that a bit.
set, you know what I'm saying? Like these are people who have like spring houses and summer houses, and I just don't know what that life is like. So that was a little bit difficult to enter into the beginning, and at certain parts throughout the film. But as a film itself, as a piece of work, I was pleasantly surprised because it's not necessarily that I don't think I would ever watch it if not for us doing this right now. And ultimately, I think I came out more enjoying than not.
Yeah. On that, like I agree 100%. It's not a movie that I would watch if it weren't for this podcast. Like once this podcast started, and I told my girlfriend the concept of the podcast, Black Guys Watching White Movies. From the day one, she was like, "Oh, you got to watch Nancy Meyer. You got to watch Nancy Meyer." And being like oh, I know white movies. I just didn't really consider it ever. I was like, whatever. I don't know what this is. It doesn't matter. We got a ton of white movies. We got a pantheon of white movies to watch before we get to Nancy Meyer. And then just eventually it sunk in after enough talking about it that I, similarly to you, I looked up the filmography and I went, oh, wait a second. I kind of remember Parent Trap. I've not seen most of these movies, but I've heard them, like Father of the Bride. I'm like, oh, these are the Steve Martin movies I've never seen. Where I go, oh yeah, he was in a bunch of movies that I had never checked out. And it felt, as I was watching it, I went, oh, this is the furthest from in my experience, and I don't want to speak for you guys, but the furthest from our experience, I would guess, because it's about white women and like them being the thing. And then this like world of class and wealth and things that, speaking for my own self, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't recognize this at all. But it's so masterfully made that it was entertaining the entire way through. And
interesting that these like dual, I don't know, not quite epiphanies, but awakenings for both of you of like, I kind of heard the name, but then I looked her up and oh my God, she's a legend.
truly. I saw an article about where her next movie would land and how it was up in the air because initially it was supposed to be at, I think it was Netflix, and she was supposed to have a $200 to $300 million budget for the movie. Wow.
Yeah.
And when I saw the article before knowing what she made, I was like, what kind of special effects, like Marvel, what is she making that's $200-300 million? And then I looked at the movies and went, 200-300 million, what? And then I saw the box office and I went, oh, I see. She has earned it.
Right. I mean, it is kind of criminal that she's not doing more movies. Like, she gets a movie every 3 or 4 years, it looks like, just based on the IMDb. But for her track record, it's like blank checker,
Right.
Blank check Nancy Meyers. Like, what does she want to do? Give her the Scorsese special.
It's so weird being like, there's not even.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's so weird to hear that and go, at least Scorsese had guns in his movie. Like, where are the special effects? Or where's the money going? But yeah, go on. What were you saying?
I mean, that is a great question. What was her $200 million movie?
I think the idea of giving her like the Scorsese special and her doing like one of these like elder romantic comedies with like again, a Jack Nicholson and a Diane Keaton doing like the youthifying face effects. So that like, let's do that. Like he did.
That's what I was wondering. Like,
let's do that whole thing.
That's what I was wondering. Is it like a journey through time of somebody's love, rom-com life, and you have to de-age everybody? Like, okay, but also let her do it. Let her do it. What else does she have to do?
That's a good point. She's proven herself.
She won over one ticket right here. I know that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's so fascinating for her niche to be like a market that I would never voluntarily join. You know what I mean? Like this older women. That's what I really loved about this movie. I was like, oh, this clearly is coming from someone who has personal experience. When Meryl Streep would meet up with her friends and they would talk about all the things, the jokes they'd make about aging and talking about the younger women and that sort of thing. I went, oh, this feels so real that I couldn't fake it if I tried.
You felt like you were transported to Martha's Vineyard or Calabasas, wherever they were, hanging out and getting drinks. It was definitely like the Sex and the City spinoff, and just like that in terms of the tone and following older women around, older rich white women. Fun fact about Nancy Myers. She's from Philadelphia. She went to Lower Merion High School, same high school as Kobe Bryant.
Whoa.
They,
Whoa.
they weren't there at the same time, obviously. She's like 40 years older than him, but Lower Merion producing a couple legends.
Right. Big time legends.
Wow.
Go to each of their respective like pursuits.
Truly. And she was a legend while Kobe was like making his way up. So you ever think Kobe was like, man, I just want to be the Nancy
I
Myers of
want to be the
basketball?
Nancy.
God, I hope so.
Kobe can rest in peace. You are the Nancy Myers of the NBA.
Truly.
I do wonder, like, when Kobe was in high school, is that something that was said? Like, like,
Right.
like
Was it
Nancy
known?
Myers went to this high school,
Was it known? Because sometimes those things kind of get lost and nobody's like, they don't have a dedication or a picture of like famous alumni. Sometimes those things get lost in the sauce, but I do
Like-
wonder also.
Like, I think there's one of the high schools around town here in Cleveland, but I knew some kids that went there, and it seems like they're always being told, like, Halle Berry went to this high school. So, like, it's like, I do wonder if it's like, you know what, Cole? Nancy Myers went to this high school.
If you want to play pro ball, you got some big shoes to fill, Kobe. Nancy Myers went here. You think you're gonna be bigger than Nancy Myers?
Right.
You better work on that jump shot, young man.
If you expect us to turn this court into the Kobe Bryant court, you better do better. Right now, it's just the Nancy Meyer court.
They thought it was Michael Jordan fueling Kobe the whole time. It
No,
was Nancy Myers
the whole
cranking out
time.
hits, working with
Mhm.
legends. Kobe was
Mhm.
like, I gotta be the most famous in Lower Merion. I gotta do it. I gotta do it. And then Nancy just keeps coming out with bangers. Kobe's like winning, and then Nancy's like, oh well, here's the intern in 2017.
It's just like, damn.
Kobe's like, I'm retired. I gotta do something in retirement.
And then he won the Oscar.
And
So
he won an Oscar.
and then he won the Oscar.
They were always competing.
He was coming for Nancy Myers the entire time.
Nancy
That's
Myers. No, look
motivated.
at this. Nancy Myers saw Kobe win 3 titles with the Lakers. Then dropped Something's Gotta Give in 2003 with Jack Nicholson. Yo, there's a correlation here. She dropped It's Complicated in 2009. Then Kobe went on to win his last 2 titles in 2009 and 10.
And Lower Merion Connect.
Yo, there was a conversation going on here. Nobody,
Mhm.
we got to get Bill Simmons on right. Or we got to talk about this.
Definitely
Stephen
needs like a
Smith.
30 for 30 for sure.
You know? Wow. Father of the Bride 2 dropped in 95, and Kobe was like, I'm not going to college. Straight to the league.
You see what Nancy Myers just did?
He's like, I had to catch up. She on top of the world now. Father of the Bride Part 2.
She's on number 2. You think I'm gonna go to college?
He was like, she worked with Steve Martin. I got to team up with Big Shaq. It's the only way.
Have humility.
Oh my God.
That's real.
What a connection. Okay, so this movie, delight, a true delight. I love the pacing of it because it never really slowed down. Even when it got into like the emotional scenes, it kept a good pace up, and like things kept happening, the jokes kept coming. And I think Meryl Streep did such a great job. And we haven't even talked about the cast yet, but some true headliners here: Meryl Streep, Steve Martin, Alec Baldwin, and Jim from The Office.
Zelensky coming on the.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's already established in 2009. He was
Yeah,
on the show.
The Office was done, and he was, he wasn't buff Jack Ryan Jim that we know now, or John. Don't want to keep calling him Jim. It's probably disrespectful, but he was transitioning. This is probably like a big movie role for him, and he was more important than the kids in the movie.
Totally. I would
Yeah.
say child, quote unquote, as the son-in-law.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then also like Lake Bell, who was the new wife,
Mm-hmm.
Rita Wilson was in the movie, and the kids, Zoe Kazan, Caitlin Fitzgerald, who's been in a bunch of stuff since then, and Hunter Parrish also been in a bunch of stuff since then. And then a bunch of character actors filling out the other roles, like people that you've seen before. When you see their faces, like Nora Dunn, you've seen Nora Dunn in a bunch of stuff.
Mhm.
You might not know her name, or you might, because she's actually been around a lot, but just a great cast, character actors, and like big name movie stars driving this movie, which, you know, you don't have to ask how this one got made.
Mm-mm.
That's kind of like what I was thinking about just a few minutes ago. We were talking about where's that 200-300 million dollars going? That's where it's going. Like she gets the biggest actors in the world in every single movie that she's in or that she makes.
Mm. Yes, yes, that's so real.
And for
Yeah.
actors like Meryl Streep, this has got to be like such a welcome breath of fresh air kind of thing.
Right.
To do something fun. I mean, her character is laughing 70% of the time that we see her. Even when she's stressed, she's like a nervous laugher,
Mm-hmm.
which has got to be definitely different than playing somebody so severe that she might do in like an Oscar type movie. And Steve Martin, who's so eclectic, it's like just kind of does something he can really have fun with. You're not going to see him talking to a bunch of green screen and
Right.
tennis balls and stuff. And then, Alec Baldwin, who's versatile, who I'm sure just loves playing with like, or acting with people of his own, of his same stature.
Mm-hmm.
He can bounce off. I mean, he seemed like he was having the most fun being this guy and like really pushing up on Meryl. Every time he saw her, he was like, "Hey, babe, come on, what are we doing? Get it back together. Bring that old thing back."
Uh-huh. Yeah, he didn't have a very complicated motivation at all. It was just like,
No.
oh man, I forgot how great this is. Man, let's keep doing this.
This is the kind of movie where I don't have a lot of criticisms about it, and we can talk about discrepancies with money and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
it makes you want to talk about the characters in the story as if it's real, as if somebody is telling you a story. Like, she should have done this, or he should have said that, but not as in like they should have written it differently, as in like if I was watching this as a reality show, these people should have reacted differently. I'm just in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could build off of that. I would say I would agree. I mean, I think for the type of story that these folks are telling here, it's kind of the perfect version of what that is.
Yeah.
Like the emotional turns happen at the right parts and they're affecting the stakes, which kind of seem breezy throughout, do really kind of get delivered home when the kids find out about the affair at the end. You know what I mean? Like it balances everything out. And, I do think Meryl Streep did a great job. I mean, I was just looking up like when was the Iron Lady, and it's in 2011, so a couple years later, maybe even her next film. And that's just an example of like, playing Margaret Thatcher. Literally, the name of the movie is The Iron Lady. That's who she's always got to play. Someone distinguished, someone serious, someone who's like powerful or something, or holding it all together, as opposed to.
Did you guys hear that?
Yes, I can.
Somebody pulled a fire alarm in my building.
No way. This is.
Did we talk about this earlier?
Yeah, we called it.
That's how you know it's real.
Oh my God. This I will have to cut out a lot of this. Well, we usually give it a couple minutes
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, sure.
and then we see if
May I have your attention?
like me and Cameron,
May I have your
if we need to leave, actually need to leave.
Oh yeah. How high up are you?
We're on the 5th floor. Usually it stops after a couple minutes, but my God, man, it happens too frequently. Not enough to talk about it all the time, but oh my goodness. And it's like they found this like somebody had messed with their fire thing somewhere, and I think that was causing it. Another time somebody was like baking and smoking in the hall. It's like, oh my God. Too many people in this building.
Can't account for everybody doing whatever they're gonna do.
Smoking in the hall.
May I have
That's
your
funny.
attention, please?
No, like the smoke from their whatever they were making.
I
Yeah,
see.
yeah,
Right. From what they were baking.
yeah.
There has been a fire alarm reported.
At least that's the story we got. You know, you never know.
Yeah.
Exit the building. Do
Yeah, it's
not use
unlikely.
the elevators, but proceed to the stairways and exit the building.
Okay, we're back after my fire alarm. Not mine, but the building's fire alarm
Mhm.
situation. Back with this complicated talking about the movie. Let's just go through the movie. I think that'll be the easiest way to talk about things in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And also just remembering everybody that, you know, we enjoyed the movie, but this is a movie that almost purposely has blind spots. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
Sure.
and I don't think that a movie like this shouldn't be made. I think it's perfectly fine and legit. And again, I think something we talked about at the beginning of this pod is like, it's not that a movie that's this white, that's all white, can't be made, or that this movie has to shoehorn Black people in it. It's the
Mhm.
overall output of movies is what needs to be diverse, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
yeah, where is the Black rom-com with, you know, Delroy Lindo and you know what I mean?
For sure.
You
Wow,
know,
great pull.
Angela
Dope.
Bassett, you know what I mean? The two of
Mhm.
them dealing with a
Mhm.
situation like this, you know. And I do think on a slight tangent that you know how IPs are often like, here is it was the UK version and then we get the American version, right?
Mhm.
I think for a lot of things we should also just have a Black version.
Mhm.
Oh, I love that.
Like The Office was a UK show, then an American, and there's an Office like in a bunch of other territories around the world, right?
Mhm.
There should be a Black Office too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the dynamics would be just different enough.
Yeah.
And you know, Stanley's like a white guy. You know, the Black guy's a white guy.
Mhm.
Greg Robinson character is like a white guy who like
Mhm.
definitely a KKK white guy
Mhm.
working in a warehouse. You know, Jim and Pam like, yeah,
Mhm.
I think we should do that. But anyway,
Yeah, that's The Office, Newark. It's just like
All right, Camden. I think it's interesting that you say that, right? Because like we've seen a lot of that happen, and it's even happened with some Nancy Meyer movies. Like there's The Father of the Bride with all Cubans, with like Andy
right.
Garcia and Gloria Estefan. I think that came out last year, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if
Mhm.
there's been any like Black adaptations of her work, but we've definitely seen that with like things like Four Weddings and a Funeral and some of those other like
Mhm.
things
Mhm.
from that like 90s era, or which obviously this is a 2009 movie, but like, you know, I
And,
feel like it's got that 90s rom-com vibe where everything's kind of like nice and feel good.
Mhm. Mhm.
well, they did well, one of these movies, not Father of the Bride. Oh man, they did one with Zach Braff and Gabrielle Union,
Mm.
and it was a
Oh.
remake. And
Mm.
they were a married couple. Maybe it wasn't a Nancy Meyer movie, but it was one of those like classic kind of movies, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But that's not what I'm talking about though. I want Cheaper by the Dozen.
Oh,
Oh,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
for sure, for sure.
But see,
Yeah.
the thing with that is they try to make it for everybody, and it's like, oh, interracial couple. No, I'm talking about a Black version, just like we do the Black casting at the end,
Mhm.
Yeah, all
a
Black.
completely Black version of these movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
No disrespect to Cheaper by the Dozen. I get why they made it and what they were doing there, and that probably wasn't even a bad move. But what we're talking about is just like
No.
straight Black versions.
Yeah.
Just like you
Yeah.
would sell it to Australia. You don't be like, oh, here's an American and an Australian version. It's all Aussies, all brothers and sisters.
Mhm.
That's what I
Yeah.
want to see. So yeah, going through this movie, like, okay, we learn this, it's all about the kids' graduation, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Kids going to college. That's what this all kind of centers around.
Mhm.
That's why the families have to get together. So they've been divorced. She's like an incredible baker.
Mhm.
Mhm.
He's an attorney, but he must have been like a powerhouse attorney because they got money. She must also be an amazing baker because when they show her house, when later on, I'm like, my God, man,
Yeah. It's
that is
so
fancy.
Even
oh,
her bakery, like
Her
even her bakery is
bakery.
like money. Some small business loans definitely got approved to like put this
Mhm.
is money here. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. The fact that she's at work when her architect comes over to be like, hey, this is the schematics for what we want to do to your house.
Yeah,
And she's
Yeah.
like, it's fine. Just put it in this big ass. No, I have no boss. I'm the boss here.
Right.
Let's talk about my home at my job.
it's crazy. So the complicated situation is Jane, Meryl Streep, and Alec Baldwin, Jane and Jake, divorced for 10 years, had a kind of a ugly divorce in a way, I guess.
Mm.
It's definitely intimated that he wasn't really there for the kids. And he was work obsessed, and he had an affair with Lake Bell, who I think is miscast in this, but it's a kind of a small role. She's fine. She doesn't do a bad job. I just mean like, well, who she is now that we kind of know her as,
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
like this writer director. She kind of plays more like awkward characters, funnier characters. For her to be like the mistress character,
Mhm.
Mhm.
it doesn't really feel like who she is. But that's all
Yeah.
hindsight, and that's not a big deal really, because she's fine in it. So he had an affair with her. He got divorced from Meryl Streep. She left him at some point and had a kid with another guy, then came back to him and they got married. He's helping raise her kid with this other guy,
Oh, you're talking about the Lake Bell character.
the Lake
Yeah.
Bell. Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
her and
yes.
Alec Baldwin's relationship. So now
Mhm.
the kid is like 6 or 7, annoying as all get out,
Sure.
and his new young marriage is not exciting and fun or sexual like he thought it would be.
Mhm.
He runs in to Meryl at the graduation and he's like, got the hots for her again. Remembers all the good time. And it's really, this movie is interesting now that I think about it for two things. One, it's like, now that they can be just them, the kids are all out of the house. He's like, oh, we're back to where we were. This is great, you know?
Mhm.
And it really showed me that he just doesn't want to be around kids. This
Mm,
is his problem in both relationships is the kids.
Right.
Interesting.
Because Lake Bell also wants another kid. So she's making him like pay attention to the calendar, ovulation cycles, and like we gotta have sex here and there. Because she wants another kid with him. And he doesn't just never wanted to be around kids. That's why they got divorced. That's why his new relationship was failing. This
Mhm.
is the white male dilemma. Kids.
That's true. That's an interesting take because even when he's around his kids, it's not like they're excited to be around him or anything else. They're never spending time. His adult children are never spending time with him.
Right,
They're always staying with mom.
right.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's interesting. In the sense that, you know, and I think I'm going to go back to the thing I said earlier about like there really being no villains in this movie, because to touch on that Lake Bell character, I think that's easily villainized in another rom-com of this type, right? The
Right.
younger, you know, the person that this person had an affair with and now is his wife, right?
Right.
But like even that scene at the party where she like realizes the affair, like the way the camera holds on her face and allows her to like go through a number of emotions on screen for the audience, like
Mhm.
even that character gets their moment of humanity, right? Not that
Right.
anything else that she does in the movie is really like bad, but because
Right.
you're kind of seeing it from Jake and Jane's perspective, like she's just
Mhm.
kind of an annoying like interloper.
Mhm.
But then like there you get like, oh no, this is a human being, and so thus nothing she's doing is designed to break up the romance that I'm invested in here in this movie, right? Like she's doing things for herself.
Right.
Mhm.
She doesn't call the
Mhm.
big scene or anything. Then the other
Right.
complication is that Steve Martin is the architect who's helping redesign her kitchen, her house, her home kitchen, I mean, in her house. and they kind of have a little flirty thing.
Mhm.
But it's interesting because it's definitely not like hot and heavy. Like,
Mhm.
don't even think they kiss. They go on a date, but nothing about their courtship really feels romantic or.
No.
And part of it is because she's, she still has feelings for Jake, and they're having sex and everything. So like she can't give herself to this new guy. But Steve Martin's character is also like
Hmm.
pretty close to asexual in this movie.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he has big friend zone energy.
Oh, 100%. He represents this like an entire restart versus, knowing that going with the devil that
Yeah.
versus this guy who you have to like restart everything. Okay, so a kiss means this. Oh, when do you do this? When does this?
Yeah.
So he's very like very appropriate and polite.
And just real quick, I wonder about the cultural messages of men in this movie, where it's like, Alec Baldwin, he kind of loses, but I think if you're like watching this movie, you're like, well, he actually turns out all right. He's gonna get divorced from the young girl who's annoying him, and that's not his kid anyway.
Mhm.
You know, his kids are grown now, so he can establish new relationships with them. He still has his job. Still a rich dude. Like, what was wrong with him being selfish? Like, this is a cultural message played out about being a man. Like,
Mhm.
he did get to have sex multiple times, exciting sex with his ex-wife.
Mhm.
He's not going to be with her, but I think if you're like a white dude, 50s, 60s watching this, you're like, uh, not a big loss. Because this is a rich guy who he's going to find somebody else if he's looking for sex or companionship. It's not really a loss to
Mhm.
him, but also what does it mean to be a good guy is to be kind of a sterile, kind of, non-aggressive, the Steve Martin character, which can be appealing to some and also culturally can be unappealing as a character to be like, I got to be like that to be a
Mhm.
good guy. So I wonder about the messages that it sends out.
It's interesting because I have an almost opposite take. Um, I feel like the movie actually does a really interesting job of not demonizing either Alec or Meryl's selfishness. Like even there's that scene at the end where she's talking to the kids and she's like, I did it for me and he did it for him. We did it for us.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sorry that it hurts you guys, but this is what it was, you know what I mean? And like, even at the end when they're sitting there, they're like laughing and there's a line, they're like last scene, Meryl and Jack's like Meryl and Alec, Jake and Jane's last scene where, she's like, well, why did you think that would work? And he said, I thought you'd fall madly for me. I didn't imagine it going the other way. And then she's like, that's par for the course. And he's like, well, and like, she laughs because she knows this dude. They've known each other probably like they've got 30-year-old children. So like, I feel like I feel like this movie doesn't really come down on a moral stance on, and I think that's what I like about it. And I think it's encompassed in the title. It's complicated piece. It's just like these things happened. And, as far as the Steve Martin character, I do think he's very appropriate. He's very standoffish. He's very polite. But I also wonder about whether or not that's like enshrining some level of docileness, because once he makes his intentions clear and asks her where she's at with whatever relationship she has going on, he tells her, I don't want to fall for somebody who's in love with somebody else.
Yeah.
Once she says there's not somebody, he immediately like kisses her arm. Like he
He does go
switches.
into it. Yeah.
He like immediately switches into like romance mode.
Yeah.
So
You're right.
I do think that this movie, in some ways you can almost say that it refuses to take a stance, but I think that's interesting because that's kind of like life in some ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that, and I don't think that the world of the movie should come down on Alec Baldwin's character, and it doesn't. I'm just looking at what are the cultural messages it's sending out,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I don't know if he should have a comeuppance in this movie, or what it would be,
Yeah.
or what I would do differently. I didn't think about it like that, but it's just interesting to say, like, in a world where if you are a rich white guy, no matter how much you mess up,
Mhm.
you know, you never face consequences, and that's the world we're living
Yes.
in, and that's, I think, the parallels I was drawing, even on a bigger scale of like cheating the economy and doing these other things,
For sure.
much more public, bigger things with many more people affected, you know.
Mhm.
For
So I do
sure.
think, as far as like relationship goes in real life, it, you know, it's kind of ideal for everybody. Everybody tried and did something, and it maybe wouldn't work out, and she had some fun, he had some fun.
Mhm.
Steve Martin, even though he got caught up, like in the end, that's just part of life. You know, you can't be closed off to getting hurt for too long, because
Oh, for sure.
you gotta live, you know. And he,
Mhm.
even though that happened, he still had a life experience that he's always gonna remember, and maybe they still get to build something after. He still working on a house, so they still get to have a relationship. So whether it's
Right.
romantic or not, that's for the sequel, I guess.
And that was
Mhm.
interesting, that because like ultimately that was his choice, right? She left that in, you know, I hope you show up, and then you see him here there
Right.
at the end. I thought that was really interesting in the way that they played that. And I do think, like, culturally, you know, there is some truth to the idea of a character, a person like, you know, Alec Baldwin's character in this movie is like, who doesn't ever see that it could possibly go wrong for them.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
and I think that maybe
Mm,
morally is a neutral, but can have either really positive or negative effects depending on the situation. You know what I mean?
yeah, it is
Mhm.
kind of like the grass isn't always greener thing. He
Yeah.
didn't face any serious consequences, but he did run into a 10-year stretch of things just not going his way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He had
Yeah.
an affair with this girl, so that ended his marriage. That was bad. Then this girl left him and had a kid with somebody else. That was bad for him. Then she comes back, so he marries her, which was another bad decision.
Mhm.
Now he's dealing with this kid that he hates.
Right.
Then he tries to get back with her and feels like, oh, she'll just fall in love with me again, and that doesn't go well. So he kind of is on a streak of L's.
It was
Yeah.
interesting too about the kid. Like, there's that scene where like the kid grabs his hand and won't let him go. You know, like kid falls asleep like holding his hand, and it's like, for as much of a little shit as that kid is the entire movie, like even he too, like, is a human
Mhm.
being who wants a father and has some care for
Um,
Alec Baldwin. So it,
Right.
yeah, it really did like not come down on anybody in any sort of come up
yeah.
its way.
Yeah. That's a very sweet thing the movie did. And if I'm looking into it, the Alec Baldwin, there's a scene where they both run into each other, Meryl and Alec Baldwin, at the elevator of the hospital
Mhm.
or
Right.
whatever it is, the doctor's offices, the fancy doctor's offices, where Meryl was thinking about getting plastic surgery and then runs into him on the elevator because he was at the fertility clinic
Right.
and
Right.
to
Early in the movie.
early in the movie. And there was a thing of, if Alec learned anything the entire movie, it was, okay, some of these actions have consequences
Mhm. Mhm.
and I have to deal with it. And if he did learn that, he avoided having a child with Lake Bell's character. And that was through the
Mm,
help of Meryl being like, well,
yeah.
that's what they want, you know? And then
Yeah.
noticing the effect it has on his children and his ex-wife and all this other stuff, and realizing like, oh yeah, I'd rather go back. Or I mean, he even had a heart attack,
Yeah.
and Meryl Streep was like there,
Yeah.
helped him out.
It, it, his life was better when he was with Meryl.
Hmm.
He
Whenever
says
he
so,
was,
right?
he
Hmm.
says it, and it's
Hmm.
clear even in this movie, things are better for him when he's with her. So the last thing to talk about, we're getting the casting. The kids, I think the kids were kind of duds in this movie. They just wasn't role for them. And I get it; they're kind of like symbolic,
Mhm.
or they're like metaphor. You know what I mean? They represent something more than they are things. And the kids are three really talented actors, but none of them are really comedic actors. I think if you
Hmm.
could, because remember we saw E.T. and
Mhm.
like having Drew Barrymore as a kid was like a revelation in that movie.
Yeah.
But sometimes just having a comedic actor in those roles can bring them to life more. But for
Mhm.
the kids to be so like, I thought you and dad were getting back together, or kind of like having feelings about it the way they did, that felt a little maybe specific or off to me. 'Cause I was like, why
Hmm.
would they want their parents to get back together now after 10 years? And like, why are they sad if it's not happening? That was just kind of confusing to me, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah, it seemed like when they admitted that to the kids. Okay, so I think John Krasinski's character was like the most the interloper who was aware
Yeah,
of
he was a good
how.
character.
Yeah, he was a great character, but he was also protecting his wife and Meryl's daughter
Yeah,
from seeing that the affair was happening the entire time,
yeah.
because he had a sense of like, oh, I know this is going to affect them, but you two are doing your thing, not even caring about the kids at all, not thinking about the kids. Who cares?
Mhm.
So then when it finally does hit them, yeah, I think there's the trauma that they never have dealt with of the divorce in the first place was coming out in that moment.
What do you
Yeah.
think? Go ahead, B.
I was just gonna say, to me, that I felt like the way I read it was that just hinted at, as breezy and as happy as all these people seemingly are now, that there was something in the actual past, right? Like that was way like that the split itself or whatever, it was way more dramatic or traumatic than like these people's like kind of comfortable relationship with each other now like hints at,
So do you
Mhm.
think the kids wanted their parents to get back together or didn't?
I think they didn't.
I don't think
Didn't.
they
Okay.
did. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think they did.
Then that's more clear to me. Maybe I had trouble reading it when I was watching it. I was like, are they sad that their parents aren't getting back together? Like at the very end when Meryl was like, no, or yeah,
I think it was more like, just don't put us back through this again. Like we already
sure.
Mhm.
been here.
That I
Mhm.
get. That I get. So yeah. Also, I think that's good. I think that's good for the movie. You pretty much get the feel for it.
Mhm.
The divorce, they start an affair, they have some great sex a couple times. He says, I'm back home, and grabs her vagina one time. A really funny joke.
Yes.
There
He's
was
like
a
home
lot of
again or
like,
something. Yeah.
there was like a lot of like jokes like that where it was just like, I could tell the age of the person who wrote it
Uh,
because it was kind of clean, but at the
yeah.
same time, it was like that's real, like, right? If you're a 60-year-old person, you've had sex, you know how enjoyable it is. So like the things were real, but at the same time, they were just kind of like squeaky clean in just a way that is like,
Yeah.
this is of a certain generation, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, it's a, yeah, a clean raunch. A clean raunch.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And
Yes.
and the other thing about this movie is when they needed to punctuate a scene, about 70% of the time, Black music.
Mm,
Ooh.
mm. And
Hmm.
yet, only I believe like maybe two Black actors, and they in the very beginning at that party, and they both play like waiters.
Yeah.
They're in the
Wow.
background.
Mm.
So that's always fun to note. Let's do some casting. Boom, boom, casting.
All right.
I think we start at the top with this one. This is all about who drives this movie. This is a star-driven movie.
100%.
So we'll start with Meryl, the lead. And she was a delight in this movie.
Oh,
We could even do Meryl and Alec at the same time because it's like the married couple. They kind of lead it. But yeah, who do you have for Meryl Streep?
okay. For Meryl Streep, I went with Alfre Woodard.
Ooh, that's great.
Let's get some
Yeah,
strong, beautiful actors.
has she done a comedy? Man,
That's amazing. That's a great choice.
yeah, I feel like we haven't seen her in a while too. Man, bring Alfred Woodard back. Come
For
on.
sure.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, I think I went with the obvious choice, but now that I've heard Alfre Woodard, I'm like, it wasn't that obvious. That's the obvious
Yeah,
choice.
that's the obvious.
But I'm going, I was split between the two people it could be. but I'm gonna go. It was Angela or Viola. I'm gonna go Viola Davis. I feel like to go with somebody like a Meryl who's always known for these like strong, iron-willed, dignified, suffering in silence types. And I'd just love to see a movie where Viola Davis is laughing and giggling 76% of the time.
Yeah, no snot bubbles, no snot bubbles.
No.
We
I don't
having
need to
fun.
see any crying. You know what I mean? Just
I'm going, I actually, went dug a little deeper because I knew Ahmad especially would have a big name,
Mm.
and I'm trying to name other Black actors. So I went with Erica Alexander, who was Maxine Shaw on In Living Single,
another great one.
and caught a
Ooh.
couple episodes of Living Single recently, and like she's really the standout comedic star of that show.
Yes.
She does things that I didn't even remember, but she is really funny. And we just saw her on Run the World, which is a Stars show for 3 now young ladies living it up in Harlem, working careers, love, and she's like the mentor figure for one of them. And still funny. Eric Alexander, man. She bring her back. Erica,
Truly.
Let's go.
She can definitely do that drama. I mean, if anybody's never seen Bosch, she has a small role on Bosch, but she's great at it.
Yeah, season 4 maybe, something
I
like
think
that.
so, something like that.
Yeah,
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen her recently. I gotta check her out.
she was great. And it's really interesting because the new generation of creators that are like our age, everybody's like pulling the Black actors they remember from sitcoms and things. So you're seeing a lot more if you get around the Black, I guess, diaspora of like content. It's like, oh wait, there's Aunt Viv, there's
Mhm.
so and so from this sitcom, whatever. I remember him. So Eric Alexander. Who you got for Alec Baldwin, Jake, the ex-husband?
Oh yeah. So for Jake, I was like, all right, I gotta have somebody to match Alfred. It's gotta be someone good. And I went Courtney B. Vance.
Ooh, that's nice. Yeah. That's great. Who's also Angela Bassett's husband.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Might have to throw Angela in there for the as the body double for the sexy scenes, just to keep things good.
She play that Rita Wilson role, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, honestly, now that you said Eric Alexander, I'm thinking like Kyle from Living Single, Terrence Carson. But
All right.
I'm gonna go with my original
The
thing.
original Kratos.
Original Kratos. I'm gonna go with my original one, which was Cedric the Entertainer.
Oh,
Yeah.
Alex
would be
got like
funny, bro.
a real like kind of, even though he's incredibly obviously intelligent and successful, he's got a real like goofy sense about him. Like he's
Yeah.
like kind of a goofball, and I think Cedric could kind of do that.
I would love to see Cedric playing something this light,
Mhm.
And not that he not because he is a comedian, but I think like on his show The Neighborhood, he's kind of the heavy.
Mhm.
In a sense, it's a comedy, but he's like, I ain't doing that. And this one he's like, would be real fun to see him more eager, like to cause mischief,
Yeah.
I'm going with DB Woodside, Black actor, bald Black actor.
The baldest.
I guess he's more of a character actor. He's just been in a lot of stuff and he's been popping up a lot lately. Like to see him lead something. Steve Martin, the architect's potential boyfriend.
Right. So I was going, all right, someone that fits that age range that's funny. And the role might be bigger with this guy, but I had to go with David Allen Greer.
Nice.
That is a great choice.
Yeah, bro. Man.
He's so good.
CAG.
Yeah.
Who you got, B?
I went Bob Townsend, Robert Townsend.
Who just had a cameo, or not cameo, he just had a role on The Bear.
Okay.
whoa.
He was Ao's dad on like a couple episodes of The Bear.
I did see like that, like a photo of that.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
Robert Townsend. No, I think
Great.
I actually can't remember who I had said for Steve Martin's character, but right now I'm gonna go with the GOAT, Don Cheadle, because he played a character whose nickname was the GOAT. For people that don't know, Don Cheadle. He's
For
also he's also a goat of this whole thing. I'm gonna go Dachi. He's really funny too.
Mhm.
It's really
Just saw
fun.
about 20 minutes of Ocean's 12 the other day, so he's top of mind.
Mhm. He's
I think
multi-talented. He could do it.
I think there's other roles you could cast, but I think the John Krasinski is like the next most important
Yeah.
Yes.
role.
Yes.
Who you got for that?
So for the John Krasinski role, the minute this name popped up, I was like, oh, this is even better than John. Put him in. Is David Diggs.
Ooh, clutch.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's a great casting. That's
it's a good one.
all right. That was great. That was great. Who you
Let's
got, D?
I feel like he might now be just slightly a little too old to play the character at that age range, but I'm gonna go William Jackson Harper.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, everybody's kind of too old now. I guess he
Right.
must have been 30 at this point, though. This is the oldest daughter.
Yeah.
Anybody from Grand Crew, the show I worked on, could do it.
Definitely.
I think I'm gonna go Jermaine Fowler,
Ooh,
who's
yeah.
real funny in The Blackening. Go see The Blackening if you haven't.
For sure.
I think I'm gonna go with that. Do you guys have any other castings you want to get out while we're here?
I did Lake Bell's character.
Mhm.
Who you got?
I went with Amanda Seals.
Nice.
Yeah. That should be fun for that.
I did
Maybe a little young for the character, but she's definitely up, doing her thing. I don't know, Amanda Seals. I was thinking of the other one, somebody else.
Oh, okay. I was
Amanda
like, oh,
Seals
yeah,
would be like, she might be too big a personality for that role.
Yes.
Because she
Yes.
is, you know what I mean? She brings a lot.
Yeah.
You'd have to give her a couple more lines or like one more scene, I think.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna rewrite. She can go off. We'll figure it out in the edit.
Cool.
She can do as many lines as she wants.
Just keep the camera rolling, get some, her ad libs and stuff. Yeah.
Let's see, I did the best friend, the Rita Wilson role, and just the children.
Go ahead. Rattle them
So
all.
eldest daughter, I went Quinta Brunson.
Yeah.
Younger daughter, I went Coco Jones.
Mhm.
The young son who just graduated college, I went Miles Truitt from BMF and other things.
Mhm.
And then the Rita Wilson role, the best friend, very small role. She'd be doing us a favor to show up on set every day, Regina King.
Yes. Yes.
Nice, nice.
That's okay. We'll make it an easy day for her.
Right.
It'll be easy.
I have no other castings. All right, last question. We'll get out of here. For whom, for what whites? What whites is this movie for? This is a question we sometimes forget on the pod, but it's always relevant
Yeah.
to say,
Yeah.
who is this for? You know,
Yeah.
it's not, this movie, I don't think is just for white people that are depicted in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're middle class, you're lower middle class, economically speaking, you don't have to be the richest of the rich to have a complicated situationship or to have a divorce and still be attracted to your ex, or even still,
Right.
have a situation with your ex. These things happen.
Yeah.
Now maybe you can't rendezvous at a 5-star hotel like they did, but you can still sneak around. You can still be having work done on your house and have the sexy architect that's like, I kind of like this guy, but I'm also in a thing with my ex. So I think this is a universal appeal, and having the big stars, of course, definitely makes it
Yeah. It helps
kind
a
of for
lot.
all white. There's no whites that this isn't kind of for.
Yeah, I would
Right.
say this is definitely a pretty universal film. I feel like I don't think you need to be like the social class of the people in the film. I do
Right.
think being close in age would probably help. I mean, I'm a
It's more
40-year-old
for
guy.
older, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this movie probably is more relatable to me at 40 than it would have been at, I don't know, 28 or whatever I was when it came out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I do think like maybe mid 30s and above, especially if you got like maybe a marriage or some children under your belt, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
this is like probably a movie that's going to really hit solid for you. But I will also agree. I think just the fact that it is complicated and that is the situation that the movie is about makes it pretty relatable to everybody, including like, right, all of us young Black dudes who watched this movie and like felt a little bit out of place. But like you said, Aaron, it happens. We've all had a complex situation at one point in our lives, and I think that had some crossover for sure.
And I
Yeah.
think the talent of Nancy Myers also is like the tone of this movie could really work for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
There's jokes where if you want to be sophisticated and have your highbrow jokes, but it also has broad humor. It also has, you know, the scene at the end where he's naked
Yes.
and the, you know, he's right in front of the camera with his junk. And Steve Martin is like, "Oh my God, why is it?
Why is it
on my
there?
screen?" Like,
That, if I could comment really quickly on that, I thought that was really interesting. There was two things that happened not too far away from each other that really pegged this movie in time. Not too long before that scene, you had Alec Baldwin say, "Hey, you just stay here. I'm gonna run to the video store, rent some DVDs, and we're gonna have a movie night." And I was like, "Wow, that pegs it in time." But then also is at this transitional space because they're having like a video call.
yeah,
And so I was like,
Right.
it really is like that in between time between that analog and that digital where we're at right now.
ooh, right, wow, yeah,
That's
yeah.
so true. This was predicting the future a little bit. No,
Yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
It's a
yeah.
kind of an interesting time capsule too, because they couldn't, they weren't texting or anything, but
Right.
you know, they could have. That could have also increased the drama if it was now, like she finds a text or like, who are you texting all the time? You know, he was
Right.
sneaking off to make phone calls.
Right.
And the kid was
Right.
like, why are you taking your phone in the bathroom? But now it's like, nobody's not taking their phone in the bathroom.
Right.
That's so true.
It's like,
And
you go to the bathroom, don't forget your phone, because you know,
You'll be there for a minute.
you can watch a TikTok or you'll catch them for something.
truly you'll be there forever. No, it's this movie was so well made and so well done because you, like you were saying, Aaron, and it's funny and there's some joy and humor to it, and it is complicated, but you don't leave feeling bummed out. Like all the moments that could have been bummer moments happened off screen, which is why I'm like, oh, this was well done. Like
Wow, yeah.
the breakup with Lake Bell off screen. There were a couple other moments I should have wrote down, but they just happen
Yeah.
off screen. We don't need to delve into it. It's like, let's move on. We're moving along.
Yeah.
So it's well done. I think it is kind of a universal thing. But if I had to get specific, it's like, this is for the whites whose kids love Wes Anderson and hip hop. You know what I mean? That's who this was made for.
Yeah, for
Wes
sure.
Anderson and hip hop.
They have their own rooms. They vacation. This is for that group.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if you've grown older with Steve Martin's comedy, then you love this movie.
100%. Yeah, there's definitely a specific faction that could absolutely love this movie. It's so for them,
All right.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that was fun. You know, we had a little interruption. Didn't break us though.
No.
Never would.
Come back next week. We got a few more for this season. We're just hitting our stride. So we'll see you guys. So we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah. See ya.
Awesome. Later, y'all.